Hello, Robs. We're back with Cawdor by Robinson Jeffers, the final remaining pages from this 1928 narrative poem. 15. In the morning, Cawdor failed to come down. Michael at length knocked at his door. She listened, trembling, and got no answer. She opened the door. He stood against the window and said, "Is it you, Michael? I'm not well. Let me alone." She saw that the bed had not been slept in. She could not see his face against the shining light, but his voice frightened her, so gentle and forlorn. "Let me bring you some breakfast, Father." "No," he said, "no, but there's one thing you could do for me." "What thing?" "To let me alone. Nothing else, nothing else." She saw that his face kept turning toward the bed. The eyes and features could hardly be seen against the morning light. She thought he meant to lie down. When Michael had gone, he locked the door and, leaning to the bed, whispered, "She didn't see you." How astonished she'd have been. "She thinks you're hunting in the north." He smiled fondly and touched the pillow. "You always had fine hair, but now it has grown longer." A sad perplexity wrinkled his face. When he drew back his hand, his eyes were again serene. He went to the window and stood with his back against the light. "From here I see you the most clearly." "Ah, no. Lie quiet." "You've had a fall," he said, shaking. "Don't speak. This puts my eyes in heaven." He stood a long while and his face darkened. "She keeps begging to die. Plenty of others want that and make less noise. It was only a sorrowful joke last night. I'd not have done it. I made her beg off at least. But when she squealed, I hardly could let go. My fingers cramped like the arms of breeding toads. I've lived some months in pain." He listened and said, "I know, thank God. But if you had died, what then? I had too much foolish pride to throw the game because it hurt." He paused and said, "I thought I needed punishment, but death's no punishment." "I thought of telling the sheriff," he laughed. "I know him. And a judge save me? I had to judge myself. Run to a judge was only running away from judgment. I thought I'd not do that. Shame Michael and do no good. Running away. I thought the same of killing myself. Oh, I've been drinking. If I'd believed in hellfire, I'd have..." Actually, he says, "Oh, I've been thinking. If I'd believed in hellfire, I'd have done it most nights of the week." He listened and shook his head. No value in needless pain. "Oh, yet if I lay as damned with blood as I believed I was, I'd manage somehow. Tit for tat is good sense. The debt was to myself as well as to you. And mostly I've paid my debts. Well, I thank God. This black's turned gray." Michael had found her brother mending iron at the forge. The little shed behind the workshop, she heard the hammer and found him. "Have you gotten your promise?" "Why, no," George answered. "I'll do it for you. I thought you'd change your mind." She was as pale as if a dear friend's death were being sealed in the plot. "Then do it quickly." "I think that father," she said, "is going to be sick. Or lives perhaps our lives perhaps will change. I'll not have time for trapping squirrels to notch the jury days of the cage with pitiful instants of pleasure." He frowned and struck the iron, the red darkening, with scales of black and white flecks. While George went to the house for his revolver, Michael climbed up the hill, weeping. But when he came, with death in his hand, she'd not go away, but watched. At the one shot, the great dark bird leaped at the roof of the cage in silence and struck the wood. It fell, then suddenly looked small and soft, muffled in its folded wings. The nerves of men, after they die, dream dimly and dwindle into their peace. They are not very passionate, and what they had was mostly spent while they lived. They are sieves for leaking desire. They have many pleasures and conversations. Their dreams, too, are like that. The unsocial birds are a greater race, cold-eyed, and their blood burns. What leaped up to death, the extension of one storm-dark wing filling its world, was more than the soft garment that fell. Something had flown away. Oh, cage-hoarded desire, like the blade of a breaking wave reaped by the wind, or flame rising from fire, or cloud-coiled lightning suddenly unfurled in the cave of heaven. I that am stationed, and cold at heart, incapable of burning, my blood like standing sea-water lapped in a stone pool. My desire to the rock, how can I speak of you? Mine will go down to the deep rock. This rose, possessing the air over its emptied prison, the eager powers at its shoulders waving shadowless, unwound the ever-widened spirals of flight as a starlight. It spins the night stabbing threads from its own strength and substance, so the aquiline desire burned itself into meteor freedom and spired higher still, and saw the mountain dividing canyon of its capacity that was to Cawdor almost his world. Like an old crack in a wall, violet shadowed and gold lighted, the little strain split on the floor of the crack was the strong forest. The grain of sand was the rock, a speck, an atomic center of power clouded in its own smoke, ran and cried in the crack. It was Cawdor. The other points of humanity had neither weight nor shining to prick the eyes of even an eagle's passion. This burned and soared. The shining ocean below lay on the shore, like the great shield of the moon come down, rolling bright rim to rim with the earth. Against it, the multiform and many canyoned coast range hills were gathered into one carven mountain, one modulated eagle's cry made stone, stopping the strength of the sea. The beaked and winged effluence felt the air foam under its throat, and saw the mountain sun cup Tassajara, where fawns dance in the stream of the hot fountains at dawn. Smoothed out, and the high strained ridges beyond Cachagua, where the rivers are born and the last condor is dead, flatten, and 100 miles toward morning, the Sierras dawn with their peaks of snow and dwindle and smooth down on the globed earth. It saw from the height and desert space of unbreathable air where meteors make green fire and die, the oceans dropping westward to the girdle of the pearls of dawn and the hinder edge of the night sliding toward Asia. It saw far under eastward the April delighted continent, and time relaxing about it now, abstracted from being. It saw the eagles destroyed, mean generations of gulls and crows taking their world, turn for turn in the air, as on earth the white faces drove out the brown. It saw the white decayed and the brown from Asia returning. It saw men learn to outfly the hawk's brood and forget it again. It saw men cover the earth and again devour each other and hide in caverns, be scarce as wolves. It neither wondered nor cared, and it saw growth and decay alternate forever and the tides returning. It saw, according to the sight of its kind, the archetype body of life, a beaked carnivorous desire, self-upheld on storm-broad wings. But the eyes were spouts of blood, the eyes were gashed out, dark blood ran from the ruinous eye pits to the hook of the beak, and rained on the waste spaces of empty heaven. Yet the great life continued, yet the great life was beautiful, and she drank her defeat and devoured her famine for food. There the eagle's phantom perceived its prison, and its wound were not its peculiar wretchedness. All that lives was maimed and bleeding, caged or in blindness, lopped at the ends with death and conception, and shrewd cautery of pain on the stumps to stifle the blood, but not refrains for all that. Life was more than its functions and accidents, more important than its pains and pleasures, a torch to burn in with pride, a necessary ecstasy in the run of the cold substance, and scapegoat of the greater world. But as for me, I have heard the summer dusk crying to be born as much as ever flesh cried to be quiet. Pouring itself on fulfillment, the eagle's passion left life behind and flew at the sun, its father. The great unreal talons took peace for prey, exultantly. Their death beyond death stooped upward and struck peace like a white fawn in a dell of fire. And that's the end of 15. And the conclusion is next, bruv. Goodbye. Good.